Hello, I'm Bret Moss, and you're watching a defining moment for creating the culture of conscience. Our guest today is Christine Hassler. Christine Hassler left her successful job as a Hollywood agent at the age of 25 to pursue a life she could be passionate about. She's an author of 2 books geared for people in their 20s, including her latest book entitled Something Manifesto. Quarter-lifers speak out about who they are, what they want, and how to get it. Christine is also a life coach and personal growth counselor. She specializes in relationship, career, and self-fulfillment. She received her undergraduate degree from Northwestern University and her master's degree in spiritual psychology from the University of Santa Monica. She and her husband, Chris, live in Los Angeles. Christine Hassler, welcome to Defining Moment. It's really a pleasure for me to welcome you here to our studio today.
And I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. Our topic today is practical wisdom for meeting the challenges and opportunities of the 20-something years. And I want to start by giving you a chance to share a defining moment from your own life.
There have been so many, but the one that came forward first was the day I quit my big successful job in Hollywood. On a whim. It was just I walked in one day and I knew this isn't where I should be anymore, and I resigned that day without a backup plan, without any place else to work, and without really any idea of what I was going to do next. My whole life up until that point, ever since elementary school, had been about getting good grades and getting into a good college and picking a major and being successful. I didn't have a lot of friends growing up. I was teased. I was locked in lockers. There was an I Hate Christine club. So I really dedicated to myself to my studies and my accomplishments. And going to college was the same thing. What am I going to major in? Let me pick up 2 majors. Let me graduate early. And then moving out to Hollywood was the same thing. How am I going to get promoted quickly? I'm going to really pay my dues. I want to be the youngest agent ever. So there was always this drive and always a doing. And I never took any time to reflect. I never really took time off. You know, in college, I never studied abroad. I never really explored different things. I was just so focused on the goal line of my life. And in that defining moment, what happened was I was riding the elevator upstairs to the 6th floor of the building to this fancy office in Beverly Hills, you know, where famous people were always wandering the halls. And I had my fancy office and my fancy suit with an assistant, you know, sitting outside who said my name when he answered the phone. And I was a success from outside standards. But that day I walked in with just this knot in my stomach, and I had had a lot of anxiety about the job, but I thought it was just job stress. But that day I just walked in and I just knew I wasn't supposed to be there anymore. I didn't like the person I was becoming. I didn't like the job very much, and I felt very off course. So I quit again with no backup plan, with no idea of what I was going to do next. I didn't have plan B because plan A was supposed to work. From when I was 12 years old, I thought I wanted to work in the entertainment industry. So in quitting, everything just kind of stopped. The course of my life and my attraction to that moment just came to a screeching halt. And I thought that my kind of doing habit I'd just go and create something different. But in the halt, in the cutting off kind of the treadmill I was in, it's kind of like literally being on a treadmill and pressing the emergency stop button, you know, when you're at a full sprint. And it really rattled me. So after that, I was very humbled because I realized that I had defined myself so much by my accomplishments. And when I didn't have a big job to talk about, I felt very insecure, and I felt like I didn't have much to offer. People would ask me what I did, and I would say something like, well, I used to work in Hollywood. I wouldn't tell them what I was currently doing, which was I was a personal trainer just to pay my bills. It was like the only job I could pick up. I had been passionate about health and fitness, so that's what I went and did. But I didn't feel like I was really doing anything. I didn't feel like I was accomplishing anything. So it really, for the first time in my life, I really had to look within to define myself. I had nothing to lean on in terms of an accomplishment or a job.
Yeah, very clear. Thank you so much for sharing that. Appreciate that. Tell us about the phenomena of sense of entitlement, which seems to plague many 20-somethings, and how it gets in the way of the very success they're seeking.
Well, the sense of entitlement that 20-somethings feel, especially today's group of 20-somethings, which are referred to as Gen Y, it's both a fact and a reality, and it's also a stereotype. So I'll talk about the fact and reality first. This group of young people, today's 20-something, grew up in a really magnificent time. It was a time of, it was Reagan years, the economy was good, there wasn't war, there wasn't a lot of, Enron and all those things didn't happen till later, so they kind of grew up, I don't want to say in a fantasy land, but in a bit of an idealistic world. They were raised by baby boomer parents who wanted to make their children's lives better than the lives that they had. So there was a lot of spoiling that happened. It was also a very kid-centric time. It was when all the really hardcore parenting books came out, and treat children with respect, and everybody started catering to children. We started seeing, everybody at field day won a ribbon. There was no first place anymore, and parents fought their children's battles for them. I remember, and I'm kind of on the brink of Gen Y and Gen X. I'm not still in my 20s, but I remember when, I didn't want to do something, my mom would write me some note to get me out of, anything I didn't want to do at school. And that happened a lot. So today's 20-somethings were raised with getting used to, things work out for me. People take care of me. I'm treated really well. I'm the center of attention. We see a lot of friendships between parents of 20-somethings and their 20-somethings, and a lot of parents who put their children on pedestals. So they're used to a nice, cush life. And so that's where the reality of the sense of entitlement comes in. It's not that they have these big egos and they think they're entitled and they think that they're great. They were raised with a bit of a sense of entitlement. So where it's playing out is in the workforce. Young people come to work and they ask questions like, well, where are my cards? Where are my business cards? When do I get a raise? What do you mean I'm not going to be in that meeting? And they expect a lot at the beginning. They feel often entitled to it. And this reality, in order for any stereotype to exist, there has to be, a kernel of truth to it. So the stereotype right now that I see among headhunters and employers and people in the baby boomer Gen X generation when they're interacting with today's 20-something is, oh my gosh, they're so entitled. And they come in and they want this, this, and this, and there's no paying the dues. And so we're seeing a big generational gap because you got the baby boomers and Gen Y 20-somethings, which are the two largest pockets of a generation in the workforce coming together with completely different mentalities about work. Baby boomers didn't come in entitled. They came in, I'm going to pay my dues, I'm going to respect authority, and I'm going to work for this company until I get a plaque that I can put on my wall after 50 years. That was sort of the mentality. Okay. And today's young people are coming in with a different sort of expectation, and they also feel entitled to have their best life. And if this company doesn't work for me, I'm not going to stay with you. I have no loyalty. I'm going to leave after 6 months because I deserve to be happy. So it's definitely a bit of an epidemic.
Okay, and so in what other ways does it get in the way of those young people finding the success and happiness that they're looking for?
I think the sense of entitlement gets in the way of people finding success and happiness because a lot of times really knowing what makes you happy and knowing what makes you successful requires failure. It requires not getting everything you want, because in that you really have to learn more about yourself and go within and strive for your own happiness and success. Coming in just sort of expecting it to occur, there's no creation in it, and so it's not really sustainable. So what I see happening a lot is with this sense of entitlement, 20-somethings go and they get everything that they want and that they think they're entitled to, but they're still not happy. They're still not happy. So it kind of creates that constant ache, the constant angst, because the expectation and the sense of I deserve, when you get it all, since you've always thought you deserved it all along, you didn't really have to work for it that hard, it doesn't fill the void. Okay, and so then what happens after that? They call me.
Okay. And what else happens?
What happens after that is usually there comes a time of what a lot of 20-somethings refer to as the quarter-life crisis, as where am I going? Where am I headed? I'm really at a crossroads. I thought this is everything I wanted, but it's not. So a lot of internal questioning and a lot of really trying to force things to happen. A lot of 20-somethings go, maybe I'm going to go to grad school, or maybe I'm going to change my career altogether, or maybe I just need to go get married or go have children, and that's going to make it make me happier. That's going to fill this void that I have. So at first it's sort of like a grabbing at things, like trying to find external things. But then what I really see happen is a shift starts to occur. And young people are starting to get early and earlier that, man, nothing on the outside is really doing it for me. I better start looking within. I better start figuring out why I am the way that I am, why I am making these decisions. And it really is that sort of aha moment of maybe some internal questioning needs to go on that washes away that sense of entitlement.
Okay, good. And I think that's kind of leading us to the next question, and that is, what are some of the expectations which are part and parcel to the unique challenges and struggles of today's 20-somethings?
Yeah, it ties into what I was saying about, this group of 20-somethings being raised with kind of a fantasy idea of what life is supposed to be like. Everything from TV to film to things in the news even were a little idealistic and painted the picture of, well, if you find something you're passionate about, you'll be happy. And if you find something you love to do, you'll be rich. It seemed like a very easy formula. So a lot of 20-somethings have the expectation that, well, I just need to find my passion, and then I'm going to be very, very happy and very, very rich. So then what happens is, a lot of times people don't know what their passion is, and they struggle, and they think something's wrong with them, and they can't find something that they love, and so they go on this quest just with this belief system that unless I find something I'm passionate about, I can't possibly be successful. And that really is a myth. I remind people that if you look up the word passion in the dictionary, the first definition you'll find is suffering. And that's the definition of passion, the passion of Christ, right? And so when I hear a lot of people say, oh my gosh, I'm struggling to find my passion, I'm suffering to find it, I'm like, well, that's part of sometimes the road of passion, And it is a myth that everybody goes to work jumping for joy and just loves their job, and it totally defines them. And what I encourage 20-somethings to do is remove that expectation that work is there to make you happy. It really is incumbent upon all of us to find the work that we love doing, but if we don't find something we absolutely love, find something we like and love ourselves in the process. I think today, if I went back to the entertainment industry and worked as an agent again, I probably could like it, because I have a different relationship with myself now and a different way that I see the world. In the past, when I was in my 20s, I saw myself as kind of a victim of the job. Like, the job is the way it is, and I can't do anything about it. And I blamed everything on my external circumstances. When really, I could have probably shifted my perspective a little bit and created a work environment for myself that I could thrive in. But I didn't have the awareness at the time. So that's one of those expectations, I think. And
so how does one go about cultivating, or what process does one go through to achieve that awareness that you're talking about?
Well, I don't think that there's one road for everyone in terms of getting to awareness, but I really think it comes with, sometimes it comes with first a disappointment. Like, first, something happens where something doesn't work out like you planned or like you thought it would be. I call it an expectation hangover that I know we'll talk about. And you have to reevaluate your approach to life. And sometimes I think it's, I always have said that I've learned far more from my disappointments and my failures than I have from any of my accomplishments or successes, because it's almost been like they're course corrections along the way. Something you perceive as a failure or a mistake or a disappointment is really sort of just a course correction. And I think that, I encourage 20-somethings to get in the mindset that there's no mistake if you learn from it. Otherwise, you're just going to repeat it over and over again. And cultivate the awareness as well that, this decade of life is really about learning. There's also the expectation that the 20-somethings are supposed to be the time in your life where you make every single decision that's going to affect the rest of your life. And so young people feel so much pressure to make so many decisions. And here's the problem. Their parents made their decisions for them their whole entire life. So their decision-making muscle is atrophied. So another suggestion that I have is to practice decision-making. Exercise your decision-making muscles. One of the tools or the challenges I give my clients is for 1 week, make every decision you're faced with without consulting anyone else. Today's 20-somethings seem to have like 50 people on speed dial whenever they face a decision. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And, it's like going to a jury to figure out, to answer a simple question. So being open to learning, realizing that mistakes aren't really mistakes if you do learn from them, and cultivating that decision making.
Okay, very interesting what you're sharing with us. So you talked about expectation hangovers. It's actually a term that you've trademarked. Tell us more about them, and really what is the serious pitfall associated with expectation hangovers?
Well, expectation hangovers is a term that just came to me one day, because I know that a lot of 20-somethings are familiar with hangovers, right? Especially, you just out of college, you're young. So I knew that that word would work. And, the symptoms of a hangover, they're pretty clear and they're pretty universal for any of us. There's a sense of regret sometimes. You might have a headache. There's spinning, the room might be spinning and you just feel a little off. You're very lazy, you've lacked motivation, and you're just kind of in a funk and a little depressed too, because alcohol is a depressant. So an expectation hangover, I define it as when the symptoms you're left with when something doesn't turn out like you planned, or an unexpected an unexpected outcome occurs that you didn't plan for. Symptoms are similar. Spinning, not that the room is spinning, but you're spinning in confusion and a lot of questionings. A lot of times there's depression. A lot of times there's lack of motivation. There's regret. There's thinking about the past and wishing you could do it over. And just a general funk, I just don't know what I'm going to do, and a sadness that comes with it as well. And I noticed that expectation hangovers are very, very common in 20-somethings, because in your early 20s, you really haven't had much life experience. You have an idea of what a relationship is going to be like, or what a job is going to be like, or what life on your own is going to be like. But until you actually live it and walk that road, you have no idea. No idea. I mean, I'd had no idea. And when the reality doesn't match the fantasy, expectation hangover. And no one, I don't know of any college today or any grad school today that teaches about how to deal with disappointment. They might teach you about economics or, German fairy tales, but they don't teach you about how to deal with true disappointment.
Okay, so please share with us some of your practical advice about the treatment and preventative maintenance of expectation hangovers.
Well, first, treatment for expectation hangovers, the best thing to do is to really get in the present moment, which I think is, as a human being, one of the hardest challenges we have.
Yes.
Is really being in the present moment, being in the now.
Tell us more about that.
Hold on, I'm thinking about what I'm going to say next. Being in the now, our mind just loves to play tricks with us, and it's a constant battle, I think, of every human, but I can only speak for myself, of really just being in our body and being in the present moment and not be thinking about what we did or what we have to do next. And society perpetuates this kind of thinking. I mean, everything around us is reminding us of the future and what we have to do next. There's not a lot of groundedness or present momentness coming in.
Yes.
Even the simple question like, how are you, that we ask each other, it really doesn't presence any of us. It's more like we have to think about the past, you have to think about what you need to do, and we're in such a society of stress and doingness that it's sort of like contagious.
Now you talk about doingness, and you mentioned at the very beginning when you were showing your defining moment. Beyond doingness, there's something called being,
right, or
being present.
Exactly.
So that's what you're talking about.
Yes.
Tell us, can you say something about being?
One of the things that I say in terms of what I think one of my journeys in life is to learn how to be a human being instead of a human doing. I took a lot of comfort in doing. My ego really likes to do, likes to achieve. But being is void of any ego, it's void of any accomplishments, it's void of any of my security blanket types of things. The things I've always been attached to in terms of, here's my resume, this is what I did, this is my circle of friends, this is my relationship, whatever. And I think beingness is very simple, yet it's very complex. It really is cultivating a relationship with yourself. And my belief system is with a higher power. Call it God, call it spirit, call it the universe. To me, it's all the same.
And there's no being separate from being in the world.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that that's the other thing that especially young people forget, is that we're all connected. You know, there's no separateness between you and I or anyone else. And I think the 20s is a very narcissistic stage of life. It's a very selfish stage of life. And everyone becomes so focused on their own world and their own life that they forget they're human beings in the world with other human beings. And one of the things that I encourage 20-somethings to do a lot is to have connection. Have connection with other people. Facebook does not constitute a relationship.
Okay. As useful as it may be for the
It's
things.
great. It's a great tool. It's a great tool, but it satisfies our human doingness,
Yes.
but it doesn't satisfy our human beingness. So when you're facing an expectation hangover, like I said, best thing, present moment. Depression lives in the past, anxiety lives in the future. So if you can bring your awareness to the present moment, that helps. The other thing is to ask yourself, what is the aha? What is the learning experience in this? Because as soon as you can get yourself out of the emotions and out of the reaction and get more to the proactive step of it, then you're releasing the thoughts of, oh, this is awful for me, and I did something wrong, and how am I ever going to get through this? That's the reactive mind. But the proactive mind is, okay, what can I learn? What can I do differently? And what can I do that's really going to nurture me right now? Maybe it's, who do I need to call? Do I need to go get a massage? What do I need to do in that moment? And the other thing that I think is very, very helpful when it comes to expectation hangover treatments is having a healthy lifestyle. Really having a healthy lifestyle.
Now you're talking about the preventative maintenance.
Well, in the treatment and the maintenance, absolutely. There's a lot of Band-Aids when it comes to expectation hangovers. Shopping, overeating, overdrinking, falling in love with somebody that isn't appropriate for you, those types of things, like anything to get you out of the moment. And those are all crutches, and more healthy behavior is, eating clean, avoiding alcohol when you have an expectation hangover, because you're already feeling a little depressed, and alcohol is a depressant. So if you put any kind of substance in your system, you're already climbing a mountain, that just puts a 50-pound backpack on your back. Why do that? And I think that when any of us do anything that's self-nurturing and self-honoring, it shifts the energy inside of us, and it can break up some of the cloudiness and the heaviness that expectation hangovers come with.
Okay, very clear. Thank you. And in the time that we have left, tell us about the 3 stages of self-awareness that 20-somethings go through, and what can young adults expect as they navigate through them?
I love talking about the self-awareness continuum. It's something that just occurred to me because I had been coaching and counseling 20-somethings and speaking to them and interviewing them for 4 years. And it was just, and I was at the end of my 20s. It was 30 when I had this kind of aha realization. And I saw so distinctly these phases of self-identity awareness that people in their 20s go through. And the first one is called the basic level. And it is usually roughly ages, can start 19, 20 to about 23, 24. And this is a stage of life where your identity is almost like a regurgitation of what you've been told your whole life. If you've been told you're smart, people ask you who you are, you say, I'm smart. If you've been told you're a great athlete, you identify yourself with that. And there's a duality of thinking. You think of yourself, there's all these things I like about myself, and there's all these things I don't like about myself. And you measure yourself via comparison, like a person in the investigative stage, the basic stage, knows how well they're doing by comparing themselves to others. So it's very much just kind of I don't want to say immature in a bad way, but it's a young stage. An identity is more a reflection than it is anything that's self-generated.
Okay.
And then we've got the investigative stage, which is roughly 23, 24 to 27, 28, 29. This is the stage that's most commonly associated with the quarter-life crisis. This is the stage where 20-something goes, shoot, oh my gosh, I don't like my life. I don't like anything I'm doing. I feel really lost. I'm really confused. I'm really unfulfilled. So that starts happening. The panic, the questioning, am I a lawyer because I really want to be a lawyer or because my dad wanted me to be a lawyer? Really questioning the paths, the decisions, and starting to recognize the need for that internal questioning. It's a rough stage. The investigative stage is definitely the bumpiest. And then towards the end of the 20s into the 30s, we get to integrated, where everything starts to make more sense. Self-perception, self-identity is self-generated. You know, your identity isn't what other people told you anymore.
And you've seen these patterns over and over again.
Over and over and over again. I can see someone and they can tell me, you know, what they're struggling with. I can guess how old they are, and once I explain what stage they're in and where they've come from, it makes so much sense. When I speak to college campuses and I'm talking to them about the basic stage, it totally resonates with them, and they can't even comprehend the other stages because they're not there yet. You know, and what's great about the integrated stage is that, and I see this with people in their late 20s, there's just an acceptance that comes with it, and a clarity that comes with it as well.
So you're able to offer a sense of hope.
Absolutely.
To people who are struggling in their 20s.
Absolutely.
It's going to get better.
Absolutely. And I feel like my mission is to really kind of demystify that this 20-something years is supposed to be like an episode of Friends, and you know, everything's great and your life just falls into place, and say it's completely normal to feel really confused and really lost and like you don't know yourself at all, and you're not alone.
Okay. Well, on that note, Christine Hassler, I want to thank you so much for having been our guest today on The Defining Moment. Please share with us how our audience can get a hold of your book, 20-something Manifesto.
Great. Well, the book's available on Amazon.com, and then my website is just christinehassler.com, where the book's also available there, and information about the coaching services too.
Okay, great. Well, it's really been great having us. Learned a lot from what you've shared today. Thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you.
You've been watching The Defining Moment for Creating the Culture of Conscience. You can find us on the internet at www.definingmoment.tv. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.